The first time I touched Mira's shoulders, I was sure I had just ruined my life. The bookstore was already closed. The street outside was quiet, rain tapping against the windows like it wanted in. The smell of old paper mixed with burnt coffee filled the air, the kind Nate always said gave the place character. I stood behind the counter pretending to work on my laptop, but really I was hiding from the fact that my life felt stuck. Nate trusted me with his bookstore while he was away in Chicago. He was my best friend. We grew up together. Same schools, same dumb dreams, same promises to do something big someday. Now he ran his family's bookstore in a small town outside Boston. And I was filling in, still unsure of what I wanted to be. When the bell above the door rang, I expected a customer who forgot the time. Instead, Mira stood there, Nate's sister. I had only met her once years ago. Back then she felt distant, like she was always somewhere else in her head. Now she looked calmer, stronger, like someone who had been through things and learned how to stand tall anyway. Her dark hair was tied up in a messy bun. She wore a soft gray sweater that hung loose on her shoulders. There was a light scent around her, clean and warm, and suddenly the bookstore felt smaller. "Eli," she said, saying my name like she was testing it. "Yeah," I said, standing up too fast. The floor creaked like it was calling me out. She looked around the shop slowly. "This place still feels the same," she said, "like my childhood never left." Quote. I tried to smile. "Smells the same too." Her lips lifted just a little. Not a full smile, but enough to make my chest tighten. She walked deeper into the shop, her fingers brushing over the books like she knew them. She pulled out an old copy of Pride and Prejudice and held it carefully. "My mom used to keep this behind the counter," she said. "People asked for it when they wanted to feel hopeful." "You read it?" I asked. "I did," she said. "I liked the parts where people said what they felt, even when they were scared." That hit harder than it should have. She stayed quiet for a moment, then sighed. "My shoulders have been killing me," she said casually, "from driving and carrying boxes." "Oh," I said, "useless." "Yeah, that sounds rough." She tilted her head, studying me. "Nate said there's an old massage room upstairs, from when our mom tried to turn this place into something else." "There is," I said. "It's dusty. The chair still works sometimes." She stepped closer, lowering her voice even though we were alone. "Do you think you could help me for a few minutes? I can't get this knot to let go." My brain should have said no. She was my best friend's sister, older, calmer, clearly used to being in control. But the way she asked wasn't flirty. It was simple, like she trusted me. "Okay," I said before I could stop myself. "I can try." We went upstairs, the narrow steps creaking under our feet. The room smelled like old wood and forgotten perfume. A small lamp cast soft light over a faded green massage chair. Rain rattled the tiny window. Mira hesitated. "I can leave if this is weird." "It's already weird," she said, smiling slightly, "but my shoulder still hurts." Quote. She sat down and pulled her sweater just enough to free one shoulder. Nothing wrong about it, but my face still felt hot. I stood behind her, hands hovering before finally touching her shoulders. The muscles were tight, like rope pulled too hard. I moved slowly, pressing gently, trying to focus on the simple work. She let out a breath like she had been holding it all day. "That spot," she murmured. The room stayed quiet, except for the rain and the soft hum of the chair. After a minute, she spoke again, surprised. "You're actually good at this." "I'm not," I said quietly. "I'm just trying not to mess it up." "You're not," she said softly. "You're doing what he never did." My hand slowed. "Who?" I asked. She turned her head slightly so I could see her eyes in the lamplight. Calm, honest. "My ex," she said. Then she looked up at me and whispered words that sent a shock through my chest. "You're better than my ex." Her words stayed in the air longer than they should have. "You're better than my ex." For a moment, my hands forgot what they were doing. I stood there behind her, fingers resting on her shoulders, my pulse loud in my ears. I wanted to pretend I didn't hear it. I wanted to rewind time to 5 seconds ago when this was just a favor and not a line crossed. Mira didn't turn around again. She faced forward like she hadn't just changed everything. "I didn't mean to make it awkward," she said calmly. "It just slipped out." "It's fine," I said too fast. I'm sorry about your ex, not sorry about the compliment. Thanks." She gave a soft laugh, more relieved than amused. "Just keep going. That spot is still tight." I swallowed and forced my hands to move again. I focused on the simple thing I could control: pressure, release. Her shoulders were warm under my palms, the tension slowly easing. Every time she breathed out, the room felt quieter. My head did not. Nate's sister. Nate's sister. Nate's sister. I kept repeating it like it would protect me, like it would push my feelings back into a box. It didn't work. Mira didn't feel like a label sitting in that chair. She felt like a woman who carried something heavy and was finally letting it go, even if just for a minute. "Where does it hurt most?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "Right between my neck and shoulder," she said, "like a rock that never moves." I pressed gently and she made a quiet sound that tightened my chest. I pretended not to notice. "You do this for work?" she asked. "No," I said. "I'm a coder. Freelance stuff." "Nate said you were doing that back in college." "Yeah, I fix bugs. Build small things. Nothing exciting." "You don't talk about it like you like it," she said. I shrugged, even though she couldn't see me. "It pays the bills." That's not the same as liking it. She was right, and I hated how easily she saw it. "What do you like?" she asked. My hands kept moving because stopping felt too intimate. "I used to write," I admitted. "Short stories. I keep saying I'll get back to it." "You should," she said softly. "You don't even know if I'm good." "I know how you notice things," she replied. "People who notice things can write." Quote. Something tightened in my throat. No one had said that to me in a long time. "You paint, right?" I asked, trying to shift the focus. Her shoulders stiffened just a little. "I used to." "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "I didn't mean to pry." "You're not," she said. "It's just complicated." The rain tapped harder against the window. The lamp made loose strands of her hair glow. I wanted to ask what happened, but I didn't. I stayed quiet and let my hands do the talking. After a few minutes, she let out a long breath. "Okay, it's easing up." I pulled my hands away too fast, then felt stupid. "Better?" I asked. She rolled her shoulders slowly. "Yeah, a lot better." She stood and fixed her sweater, then turned to face me. Up close, her eyes looked tired in a way her calm voice didn't show. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome," I replied. "Anytime." The words slipped out too easily. She held my gaze for a beat longer than normal, and I knew I wanted her to come back. "We should go downstairs," she said. "Before Nate thinks you kidnapped me." I laughed, forcing it. He'd call the police and apologize later. Downstairs, the bookstore felt different. Same shelves, same smell, but the air between us had changed. We straightened stacks and put books back. Simple work, pretending nothing happened. Every time our hands brushed, my whole body reacted. When I locked the door, Mira stood by the window watching the rain. "I should go," she said, but she didn't move. "Yeah," I said. "I didn't move either." "Eli," she said quietly, "Nate doesn't know the details of my divorce." I frowned. It wasn't just growing apart. "No," she said. "He made me feel small, like I was lucky he picked me." My stomach turned. I stepped closer without thinking. "That's why what you did mattered," she said. "You didn't take. You just helped." Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. She checked it and her expression tightened. "It's Nate," she said. "Is he back?" "Not yet," she said softly, "but he's coming home early, tomorrow." Tomorrow felt too close, too fast. "We should keep things simple," she said. "Yeah." I agreed, even though nothing felt simple. She wrapped her scarf around her neck and paused at the door. Tonight mattered to me. It mattered to me, too. She left, and the shop felt empty in a way it never had before. The next day, I opened early just to keep my hands busy. When Mira came in, she placed a coffee in front of me. "Drink," she said. "You look awful." "Thanks," I said. "Can we talk?" We moved into the poetry aisle, shelves closing in around us. "When you touched my shoulders," she said, "I felt safe." My chest tightened. "Do you want this?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "But not like this," she added. "No secrets." "We decide together," I said. "Together." She agreed. When Nate called, saying he was an hour away, the air went cold. And when he walked through the door later, smiling like nothing was wrong, I knew the quiet was about to break. Nate walked into the bookstore like he always did, loud and smiling, carrying his bag like the place belonged to him. Because it did. The bell above the door jingled, cheerful and innocent, like it had no idea what it was ringing in. "My bookstore," he said, spreading his arms, still standing. I stepped out from behind the counter and hugged him. Guilt hit me hard in the chest. He smelled like travel and airport coffee. Familiar. Safe. Everything I was about to risk. "Hey, man," I said. "Welcome back." Mira stood a few steps away, hands folded, calm like she always was. Nate turned and hugged her too. "Hey, big brother," she said. For a second I watched them, trying to remember what normal felt like. Nate pulled back and looked between us. "Looks like you two kept things running." "Barely," Mira said lightly. "Eli didn't burn the place down." Nate laughed, but his eyes stayed on me a second longer than usual. Then he pointed at my hands. "Why are your fingers red?" I glanced down. "Cleaning. Dust gets everywhere." "Right," he said slowly. "Cleaning." He picked up a book, flipped through it, then looked at Mira. "And you? You've been here a lot." "I was helping," she said smoothly, "making sure he didn't turn this place into chaos." Nate smiled, but something behind his eyes shifted. Not anger, not suspicion exactly. Curiosity. "Hey," he said to me, casual. "Wanna grab a beer later? Just you and me." My stomach tightened. "Yeah." "Sure." "We'll talk," he said. And just like that, the quiet was gone. Later that night, Nate locked up the shop and told Mira he'd be back in an hour. She nodded, but I saw the tension in her jaw. We walked to a small bar by the river, the kind with sticky tables and old sports posters. Nate didn't order. He just stared at me. "You've been weird," he said. "I've been tired." "I know you," he said. "I know when you're hiding something." I stayed quiet. He leaned back. "Is this about Mira?" The question hit like a punch. "Yes," I said. His face changed, shock first, then hurt. "You're my best friend," he said. "She's my sister." "I know." "How long?" "A few days." "And you thought hiding it was smart?" "I didn't want to lie," I said. "I just didn't know how to tell you." "You already lied," he said quietly, "by not saying anything." The silence burned. "I'm not using her," I said. "I care about her." Quote, "You were supposed to be safe," he said. That hurt the most. We went back to the bookstore and Mira was waiting. She didn't look scared. She looked ready. "You told him," she said. "I did." "Why him?" Nate asked her. "Because he saw me," she said. "Because he didn't make me feel small." Nate turned to me. "Did you touch her?" I swallowed. "I gave her a massage." Mira stepped forward. He didn't force anything. Nate dragged a hand down his face. "This is insane." "It's just hard," Mira said. "Not wrong." He looked at me again. "Are you in love with her?" The word felt too big. "I don't know yet. But I care, and I won't hurt her." "If you do," Nate said, "I'll never forgive you." "I understand." He left. The bell rang behind him, loud and final. Mira stood still, then reached for my hand. I took it. Outside, the rain had stopped. The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement. "I hate that he's hurting," she said. "So do I." "But I don't want to go back to feeling nothing," she said. I looked at her. "Then don't." Quote. She leaned her head against my shoulder, just for a moment. No rush, no claiming, just quiet. "I meant what I said," she whispered. "You're better than my ex." I rested my forehead against hers. "I want a real chance, in daylight." She nodded. "Okay." Behind us, the town kept moving. Ahead of us, everything felt uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to run from it. The next few days felt heavier than the rain-soaked streets outside the bookstore. Nate didn't come back right away. He said he needed space. I didn't blame him. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened, expecting his name. Sometimes it was just a customer asking about store hours. Sometimes it was silence, which somehow felt worse. Mira and I kept our distance in public. No touching, no long looks, just calm voices and careful steps. We worked together like nothing had changed, like we hadn't stood by the river and agreed to give this a real chance. But every quiet moment between us felt full, like a held breath. One afternoon, while we were shelving books in the back, Mira spoke without looking at me. "He still hasn't answered my texts," she said. "He will," I replied, though I wasn't sure. She nodded slowly. "I know I hurt him." "You didn't do it on purpose." She finally looked at me. "Neither did you." That helped more than she probably knew. That evening, after closing, Mira asked if I wanted to walk. The air was cool, the sky clear for the first time in days. We walked along the river again, the water moving slow and steady, like it had all the time in the world. "I keep thinking about what he said," she admitted, "that I'm going to get hurt again." I stopped walking. "I don't want to be another man who makes you feel small." She turned to face me. "Then don't disappear when things get hard." "I won't," I said. "Even if Nate never forgives me." Her eyes softened. "He will. He just needs time." We sat on the bench, our shoulders touching this time. It felt like permission. "Tell me about your ex," I said quietly. She took a breath. "He liked control. At first it felt like safety. Then it felt like a cage." My jaw tightened. "You don't deserve that." "I know that now," she said. "That's why I'm scared, because you feel different." "Different how?" "Kind," she said. "And that makes me want to trust you." I turned toward her. "You don't have to rush anything. We can go slow." She smiled faintly. "Slow sounds good." A few days later, Nate finally called. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Yes," I said immediately. He met me at the bookstore after hours. He didn't smile, he didn't yell either. He just looked tired. "I've been angry," he said. "And scared." "I know." "She's been through hell," he continued. "I don't want her broken again." "Neither do I," I said. "If I ever thought I would hurt her, I'd walk away." He studied my face for a long moment. "You really care about her." "I do." He sighed. "I don't like this, but I don't want to lose either of you." Relief washed through me so fast I almost felt weak. "I'm not giving you my blessing," he added, "but I'm not stopping you either." Quote, "That's more than I expected," I said honestly. He nodded once. "Don't make me regret it." When Mira found out, she cried quietly in the poetry aisle, pressing her face into my shoulder. I held her carefully, like she was something fragile and strong at the same time. That night, when I walked her to her car, she stopped and faced me. "Can I kiss you?" she asked. The question alone made my heart race. "Yes," I said. The kiss was slow and careful. No rush, no claiming, just warmth and trust, and the promise of something new. As she pulled away, she smiled. "Still better than my ex." I laughed softly. "That's a low bar." She laughed, too, and for the first time since this all began, it felt like the future wasn't something to fear. After that night, things between Mira and me settled into something real. Not dramatic, not rushed, just steady. We didn't announce anything. The town didn't need to know. We moved through our days with small, quiet moments. Coffee left on the counter for each other. Notes tucked into books. Walks after closing where we talked about nothing and everything at the same time. Nate watched us carefully. He never said much, but he didn't pull away either. Some nights he joined us for dinner. Some nights he left early. I learned to read his silence. It wasn't hatred. It was protection. One evening, Mira and I sat in the bookstore after hours. The lights low, rain tapping softly against the windows again, like it had that first night. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. I turned toward her. "Being with you?" She nodded. "Not once," I said. Do you? She thought for a moment. I regret how long I let myself believe I deserved less. That stayed with me. A week later, Nate surprised me. He asked if I wanted to help expand the bookstore's website. Online orders. Events. Something more modern. You're good at that stuff, he said. And you need something that's yours. I smiled. Yeah, I do. Mira noticed the change in me before I did. I stood straighter. I laughed more. I even started writing again at night. Small pieces. Honest ones. One night, she found me typing in the bookstore after closing. You're writing, she said softly. Yeah. She leaned over my shoulder, reading quietly. Then she kissed my cheek. I knew you would. The first real test came when Mira's ex showed up in town. I saw him first, tall, confident in a way that felt practiced. He walked into the bookstore like he still belonged there. Mira, he said, smiling like nothing had ever gone wrong. Her body went still beside me. I'm not interested in talking, she said calmly. He glanced at me. You must be the friend. I'm Eli, I said. He smirked. Figures. Mira stepped closer to me. You should go. For a second, he looked like he might argue. Then he shrugged. You always did like replacements. Before I could speak, Mira did. He's not a replacement, she said. He's an upgrade. The door closed behind him, the bell ringing sharp and clear. Her hands were shaking. I took them. You okay? I asked. She nodded. Yeah, I am. That night, Nate looked at me with something close to respect. You handled that well, he said. Mira handled it, I replied. He nodded. Yeah, she did. Later, as Mira and I walked home, she leaned into me. I don't feel small anymore, she said. I squeezed her hand. You never were. She stopped under a streetlight and looked up at me. You changed my life. I shook my head. You just reminded me who I wanted to be. She kissed me then, sure and warm, no fear in it at all, and I knew the hardest part was behind us. Life didn't suddenly turn perfect after that, but it finally felt honest. The bookstore became more than just a place we worked. It became the center of everything. Nate leaned into his ideas again. Readings, small events, people coming in not just to buy books, but to stay. I helped build the website, set up online orders, even wrote short posts about new arrivals. For the first time, my work felt connected to something real. Mira watched all of it quietly, proud in a way that never felt loud. One night, after a late event, we sat on the floor behind the counter, backs against the shelves. The shop was quiet, lights low, the kind of calm that only comes after a long day done right. You look different, she said. Better tired, I replied. She smiled. You're happier. So are you. She nodded. I don't wake up afraid anymore. That mattered more than anything. Nate came around slowly, not all at once. Some days were easy. Some days were stiff and quiet. But he never shut us out again. One night, while we were closing up, he stopped me near the door. You're good for her, he said. I didn't try to joke. I know how serious that is. He held my gaze. If you ever forget, I'll remind you. That's fair, I said. Mira heard later and hugged him so tight he laughed and told her to breathe. Months passed. Seasons changed. The river froze, then thawed. The town kept moving. One evening, after locking up, Mira and I walked the same path by the water where everything had started. The air was warm, the sky soft and clear. Do you remember the first night? She asked. How could I forget? She smiled. You were shaking. So were you. Quote. She stopped and turned toward me. That night you didn't know it, but you showed me what care looks like. I took her hands, and you showed me what courage looks like. She studied my face, that calm strength still there, but now softened by trust. I'm glad it was you. So am I. I leaned in and kissed her, slow and certain. No fear, no guilt, just us. Later, as we sat together watching the water move, she rested her head on my shoulder. You know, she said quietly, when I said you were better than my ex. I smiled. Still true? She laughed softly. It was never really about him. I looked down at her. It was about how you made me feel, she said. Safe, seen. Enough. I wrapped my arm around her and held her close. For the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about ruining something. Because this wasn't a mistake. It was the start of something we chose.